Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, that's a nice call and response. Thank you. I'm Phil Lipoff from NBC 10 Boston. I anchor the 5, 6, and 11 o'clock news there. And more than that, I'm thrilled to be back here to host ArcTank 3.0 this afternoon. The first two, hey, Shirley, social media? The first two are fantastic. This is promising to be even better. It's going to be an inspiring afternoon with 7 applications presenting their ideas to the panel of experts and you, our cabinet of positive disruptors. For the influencers in the room, as you are sharing your expertise today, please use the hashtag ArcTank and changing lives. So every time you tweet or put something, use those hashtags so we all can get together and repost. But first, and this is always, how great is it that the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation has partnered with Northeast Arc again this year for the ArcTank. That's worth a round of applause because this room is spectacular. We have a different setup this year, but the view is always amazing except on days like today. So can't control the weather. Also, please welcome our host, Steve Rothstein, the Executive Director of the Library Foundation. Steve.
Thank you, Phil. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to welcome all of you back. How many of you have been here in other years for other ArcTanks? Great. Well, welcome back. And for those of you the first time, welcome to the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation. On behalf of the John F. Kennedy Library and the Foundation and the entire teams, the Library Director, Alan Price, and Rachel Floor, to thank them for their leadership. And while I'm going to be transitioning, we're thrilled that this process will continue. I want to thank each of you, the Northeast Arc, Joanne, Stephen, the judges, all of the applicants, all of you who are doing creative things, and really continuing in the spirit of President Kennedy. I know I don't have to give you much of the background, but I just want to kind of briefly give a little bit of context of why we're doing this here. You know, as many of you know, at the dawn of the new frontier, when John Kennedy was just elected president, intellectual disabilities was really a neglected issue. There was minimal state and federal funding. Few scientists were doing research. Fewer doctors and educators were training. The concept of jobs for people with intellectual disability was actually a new concept, and some of the first documentation was being written at the time. President Kennedy, with the strong advocacy of his sister Eunice, and when I say strong advocacy, those of you understand what I mean. When Eunice decides to do something, it's really strong advocacy, brought it out of the shadows. And they did that for both policy and personal reasons. I think, again, you all know that President Kennedy had a sister, Rosemary, 16 months younger than him, that had intellectual disabilities. At the urging of Eunice Kennedy Shriver, he made this a top issue. He didn't even wait to be sworn in. So during the transition, John Kennedy had a task force beginning to work on that. And then once he was sworn in, he had a very blue ribbon distinguished panel looking at a variety of issues. And then in October of 1962, they presented 100 recommendations to the president. And those in 63 became the core of what even today, over half a century later, are the services that are provided in this country. And at the time, the part of the recommendation said, quote, urged him to think and plan boldly. Think and plan boldly. So I think that the people you're about to hear have really taken that to heart, and each of you in your own way have taken that to heart in what you're doing. President Kennedy said, quote, we must promote to the best of our ability and be for all possible and appropriate means the mental and physical health of all of our citizens. Clearly, the work that he and his family did have changed both from the legislative, from so many organizations, whether it be Best Buddies and Special Olympics and Very Special Arts and so much more. So it is an honor in trying to continue President Kennedy's legacy to partner with the Northeast Arc, which is the best organization. Join me to thank them for their great work and all of their leadership. Thank you, sir.
Stephen, thank you. And as many of you know, the Northeast Arc is a member of a larger organization with more than 700 ARCs all over the country, all independent nonprofits that come together to support legislation and policy on the state and national level. And today, we are very fortunate to have with us Fred Mazzillo, a long-term advocate for people with disabilities and the current board president of ARC of the United States. Fred.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that kind welcome. On behalf of the Board of Directors and staff of the ARC of the United States, I welcome all of you here and thank you for the opportunity to be before all of you. ArcTank 3.0, the effort to positively disrupt disability services through innovation and action through the partnership of the Changing Lives Fund established by Stephen Rosenthal. Connecticut Council on Developmental Disabilities is now involved, the Nancy Laurel Marks Family Foundation, the Doug Flutie Jr. Foundation for Autism, and of course this John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum. A shout out to Joanne Simons at the Northeast ARC. She's an extraordinary leader and a positive thought provocateur who has clearly made a huge difference in the lives of folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. This truly has been a remarkable effort by remarkable people. The partners, the influencers, the distinguished judges, the moderator, everyone involved. This combined effort represents thought leadership at the highest level. Making change happen through competition, philanthropy, collaboration, and innovation. In my role as President of the ARC of the United States, I've had the privilege of meeting many people throughout the country, talented and committed to devoting their time to support folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities to be fully included in their communities across the nation. The leadership of the Northeast ARC, the second largest ARC in the country, is a true north waypoint in the work of the ARC. So too is a lifelong commitment of people like Leo Sarkisian, who's here, who's the CEO of the ARC of Massachusetts, who have made the ARC community a decidedly valuable and wonderful place to spend time. Let's put the ARC community in context of the disability movement that has been built by so many dedicated people nationwide over the last 70 years. It's the oldest and largest charity federation in the nation that is dedicated to promoting and protecting the civil rights of folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities and actively supporting their inclusion and participation in their communities. We're the 8th largest charity federation in the United States. We have over 700 chapters in 48 states and the District of Columbia. With about 4,700 service locations across the country, we have 7,000 board members, 135,000 staff, about 50,000 volunteers. Collectively, we serve over 1 million people. Together, the ARC over time has opened school doors to children with disabilities, guaranteeing them the right to have a free, appropriate public education. We've established basic income supports that are available through Social Security and the Supplemental Security Income Program, the SSI program. We've secured access to health care through Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act. We've secured access to long-term services and supports, for some through Medicaid waiver programs. We've moved thousands of people out of institutions and into community-based housing. We've supported the development of a strong and growing self-advocacy movement. We got the R word out of the federal and state laws, and perhaps most importantly, considering what is happening these days in Washington, we've kept Medicaid, Social Security, and the SSI disability programs from having their federal funding cut. And it's efforts such as the ArcTank which further ensures innovation and effectiveness in our collective efforts to support individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. Those of us who work in this field, who work with families, work with providers, we all recognize the collective work that we do is hard. It's a continual uphill trek. There are many challenges facing our community, but remember, as anthropologist Margaret Mead has written, we are continually faced with a series of great opportunities, brilliantly disguised as unsolvable problems. The ArcTank provides opportunities to think out of the box and to lead by example, and yes, to take some risk to solve what some may view as vexing problems. It is central to the Arc's collective and historical commitment to change. In closing, in thinking about coming here today to this presidential library, I'd like to share some guidance about making change from an icon of the civil rights movement, Congressman John Lewis, who was awarded the Profile of Courage Award, I believe in this room, in 2001. He wrote in his memoir, "Take a long, hard look down the road you have to travel once you have made a commitment to work for change. Know that this transformation will not happen right away. Change often takes time. It really happens all at once. Ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is not the struggle of one judicial appointment or presidential term. Ours is a struggle of a lifetime, or maybe even many lifetimes. And each one of us in every generation must do our part. And if we believe in the change we seek, then it's easy to commit to believe in doing all we can, because the responsibility is ours alone to build a better society and a more peaceful world. Thank you all today for being here and your commitment to positive, disruptive change."
Fred, thank you. Now you'll join me, please, in welcoming Joanne Simons, President and CEO of Northeast Arc.
So the Northeast Arc has been changing lives for 65 years. We do it in 190 communities with 1,300 dedicated staff, and we serve almost 2,000 children, adults, and families. In addition to our partners, Secretary Sutters and Commissioner Ryder, to our direct support professionals, to all of you who are here today, thank you. 65 years ago, families came together because they envisioned a different life for their sons and daughters, not one of institutions, limited education, not of isolation or neglect. They were disruptors. They envisioned life in the community. They envisioned access to education, jobs. I joined the path they set 40 years ago when our son John was born with Down syndrome. Hurt and love are powerful combinations. And seeing the limits society had on him, I was driven not to change him, but to change the world for him, to disrupt. John's an accomplished golfer with a pretty good sense of humor. And one day, as he was waiting to tee off on the porch of a country club, someone turned to him, another golfer, and said, "What's your handicap?" And he quickly said, "Down syndrome." But John understands too well that he is still defined by his disability, and my friend Steve Rosenthal understood that and challenged us to change that, to think big, to think bold, to think positive, disruption. And he created the Changing Lives Fund as the vehicle for his $1 million donation to us to change lives. And the ArcTank was developed, together with Steve, to bring ideas to the next level, quickly, and without the restrictions of traditional grant making. His hope, our hope, was that others would see the value of this type of philanthropy and support the Changing Lives Fund, so this can continue. This year, we are thrilled to announce that we have 2 other big and bold thinkers that joined us to the Changing Lives Fund: the Doug Flutie Jr. Foundation for Autism and the Nancy Lurie Marks Family Foundation. Both foundations have a history of champion change. They each support thousands of people each year through their grant programs. They both chose to partner with us today. By contributing to the Changing Lives Fund, they are helping to maximize impact and support the wave of change already seen in the past 2 ArcTanks. This 3rd year of the ArcTank demonstrated again that big and bold ideas exist. This year's competition, we saw another nearly 100 applications from around the world. Applications came from higher education, from for-profit companies, from nonprofits, from family members, from universities, from people inspired by just being in the audience these past 2 years. This is the impact that Steve imagined. Steve, I think you succeeded. Thank you. Today's ArcTank couldn't have happened without a team of partners offering their time to review the applications. It takes time to take 100 to cull them down, make tough choices and to determine who would be here today to present. This afternoon, 6 more of our partners, our panel of experts, will decide the outcome of the ArcTank. Mary Lou, Matt, and Matthew, Quincy, Ralph, and Shirley, thank you for taking time out of your day and come back to us year after year. You lend your expertise and your knowledge, and you have the most difficult decisions to make. We wouldn't be here today, literally, in this room, without the support of another friend, Stephen Rothstein, CEO of the JFK Library Foundation. I've known Steve for over 35 years, and when I shared with this Steve the other Steve's gift and idea for positive disruption in a Shark Tank-like competition, Steve offered his personal assistance and got the library and foundation on board. Thank you, Steve. You have no idea how important that gesture was to me. So I also want to shout out, because there's always a person behind the curtain. In this case, it's Tim Brown, who actually is our Director of Strategy and Innovation. He not only puts together the ArcTank, but all the innovative things that the Northeast Arc is doing. And thank you, Tim, and your team. So I want to share with you a story, because whenever I'm in an audience like this, some of you I've known for a very long time, and others I've just met today, and some of you I have not met yet. But several years ago, our son was coming back from Cape Cod, where he lives by himself, independently. And we meet him at Logan Airport, and he takes a bus from Cape Cod to Logan Airport. And on this particular day, Logan Airport was a mess. It was Friday afternoon, you know the drill. Just Terminal B, where we met him, was closed because a bus had gotten stuck there. He was 90 minutes late. I was frantic. You know, he was very early in his independence, and I started calling the bus companies, and I couldn't get through because the airport was closed in Pittsburgh, and that was a U.S. air hub. It was just a convergence of terrible things, and he's lost. And I finally realized I didn't have my cell phone, because in those days families only had one, and I had given it to our daughter because she had some event to go to. And I finally get through to the bus company, and I'm pleading with them to call ahead to find out where Jonathan could be. You know, how hard would it be to find a 25-year-old man with Down syndrome on a bus? And all of a sudden, there's a tap on my shoulder, and I turn, and it's Jonathan. And I say to him, "Jonathan, how did you find me?" And he said, "I've known you my whole life." So I feel like, even though I might not have met you, when we come together for some kind of purpose like this, that if we don't know each other for our life, we will certainly know each other in the days to come. So thank you very much, and enjoy.
Joanne, thank you. So the rules of the contest were simple. Think big, think bold, and be creative. As Joanne just noted, nearly 100 applications were submitted. 7 were selected to go forward today. So in your program books that you all have, you will find a full-page description of each of the proposals being presented. You will also find something called the holding tank. The holding tank is made up of other high-ranking applications that were submitted. There's a brief description and contact information for applications in the holding tank. And while we welcome sharks in the audience to reach out to applicants whose ideas speak directly to you, we do want to remind everyone that remind everyone in the room that this is a non-solicitation event, so please, we ask that you respect the format. And speaking of the format, this afternoon's program is going to be fast-paced. Each applicant will have 5 minutes to present their idea to the panel of experts who you see here, and then the panel will have the opportunity to ask questions. So let's get started. Shirley Leung is a columnist writing on everything from the intersection of business and politics to gender issues in the workplace. She's a frequent WGBH contributor to Boston Public Radio and Greater Boston shows. Shirley is a regular guest on New England Cable News as well. Shirley has been a 3-time finalist for the Gerald Loeb Award. I want to be watching, sorry. For the Gerald Loeb Award for Commentary in 2018. Boston Magazine named her as one of the 100 most influential people in Boston. Shirley is the proud parent of 2 sons, both with autism. Matthew Kennedy is the grandnephew of President Kennedy, a senior advisor at Laurel Strategies, and the founder of the Kennedy Merchant Partners. Matt has served in senior roles in the Obama administration. Matt also worked closely with the Overseas Private Investment Corporation to develop innovative public-private partnerships enabling small businesses to learn about overseas markets and exporting. He also serves on the board of the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights and the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library. We can clap in between each one. All right, next up. Quincy Miller is the president and vice chair of Eastern Bank and serves on the board of directors of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, the Boys and Girls Club of Boston, Bottom Line, the Alliance for Business Leadership, the Greater Boston YMCA Board of Overseers. He is also the board of emeritus of the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts and a C-suite member of the partnership. Quincy has been recognized in the community as an inaugural member of the GK 100, Most Influential People of Color in Boston by Get Connected. Mary Lou Sutters is the secretary of the Massachusetts Executive Office of Health and Human Services, the largest executive agency in the entire Commonwealth. She leads the Commonwealth's efforts to address the opioid epidemic, chair the state's healthcare marketplace, and the Autism Commission. Mary Lou is a trained social worker and has served as the Massachusetts Commissioner of Mental Health and has been a private nonprofit executive and college professor as well. Ralph James recently retired from Harvard Business School and currently spends his time on philanthropic adventures and volunteer roles with organizations like Harvard Graduate School of Education, Radcliffe Institute of Advanced Studies, and the Harvard Divinity School, Joslin Diabetes Center, and the International Quilt Museum as well. Ralph and his family continue to be very involved with Northeast Arc's Peabody's Black Box. And Matthew Mellett is employed by the Department of Youth and Services as a security officer. Matthew serves on the board for Special Olympics Massachusetts and is himself a competitive athlete. Matthew and his team played in the 2019 Special Olympics World Games in Abu Dhabi this past year. But listen to this. That was impressive enough. In one game, Matthew threw up a Hail Mary shot within his own free throw line, and it was at the buzzer, so that's 3/4. Quickly became a YouTube sensation with a video of that feat being viewed by thousands. I have not seen it, so it would be impossible for us to proceed without playing a clip of that shot.
All the way. Oh! Wow! Oh, wow! Wow! Woo! Did you see that, ladies and gentlemen? What a way to end this game! USA! Rolling with a win! Plus a full court buzzer beater! Wow! Everybody's up on their feet. And we're going to love to see that once again. Matthew Millett, that man, was surely on fire. Here we go. Let's have a look at it. From the free throw of the other court, puts it up. Swoosh. Nothing but the net.
I mean, not only was that an incredible shot, but you didn't need the glass. It was nothing but net. It was incredible. So just before we came out here, the panel, we were all discussing how amazing that shot was. Someone brought up Steph Curry's name and thought out of 20, how many would he hit? Does anybody think he'd get 5 out of 20, Steph Curry? Raise your hand. See, not even 5. So you were right about that. I thought he'd get maybe 5. We're talking about Steph Curry, but that puts Matthew in a category with some of the best basketball players in the world. That's hands down. All right, helping our panel of experts deliberate is David Chang again this year. David is Chief Executive Officer of Gradifi and an entrepreneur in residence at Harvard Business School. David is a recognized leader in the entrepreneurship community. He has held operating roles at 5 startups and has made 40 angel investments in early-age startups. He previously led the PayPal for Boston office and co-founded the ArcTank innovation space. This is David's 3rd year. This is 3.0 and David's 3rd year of involvement with the ArcTank. We're lucky to have him moderate again today. And David, I'd like you to come up.
All right, thanks, Phil. We're going to keep the energy up and introduce the first presentation. So welcome James Kim and his presentation, Beat Rockers. James is the founder and executive director of Bridging Education and Arts Together, Beat Global. Beat Global is a nonprofit based in New York City dedicated to providing unique hip-hop-based educational programs to underserved youths and people with disabilities. The mission of Beat Global is to transform the lives of people through the power of creative expression using nothing but their own voices or bodies. A graduate of Binghamton University, James started his career at Comedy Central and MTV. He's a 2017 Camelback Ventures Fellow, member of the BMW Foundation Global Leadership Council, and Nation Swell. Joining James is Christine Lin, Communications Director of Beat Global, and Beatsmith, a former beat rocker instructor and professional beatboxer.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Kim, and today I want to share my vision of teaching beatboxing to every student with a disability. Now, it all started 10 years ago when I was invited to DJ the school dance at the Lavelle School for the Blind. And it was the first time I saw a gymnasium full of kids with multiple disabilities come alive through the power of music. The reaction was one full of enthusiasm and joy, and I was so inspired in that moment. Originally, I wanted to arrange like a beatboxing showcase, but ultimately decided to create a program called Beat Rockers so we can teach the kids how to beatbox. But not just by anybody, by some of the best beatboxers in the world, like my man Beatsmith. And for those of you unfamiliar with beatboxing, I refer to Kayla Milady. She's an ex-instructor of ours and also the current beatboxing world champion.
Beatboxing is vocal percussion. It's the act of using your human instrument as it was made to make
sounds. Put sounds together and make music.
Drum sounds, basses, sound effects.
It's easy.
Easy. Well, what else is it about beatboxing that makes it so effective for kids with disabilities? And as you can see above me, there's a bunch of reasons, but most importantly, not only is it easy, it's accessible, it's free, and it's really fun to do. I mean, anybody can start beatboxing immediately, regardless of your ability, your disability. You don't need to know anything about music. And rather than learning how to manipulate or play an instrument, when you're beatboxing, you become the instrument. You are the instrument, which is especially profound when you're working with kids with disabilities. So upon launching the program, we begin to hear immediately the feedback from the parents and the teachers and the speech-language pathologists about how the students were becoming much more vocally expressive. And because every student at Lavelle requires 1 hour of speech therapy a week, we began to imagine, well, how can we leverage beatboxing as an effective tool for speech therapy? Let's hear it from the Lavelle co-principals.
Every time they hear music now, they're much more inclined to make some of those sounds and to be more vocal than they had been before. So there's a direct correlation there.
You know, the speech therapists sometimes have a difficult job in integrating within a classroom and going, you know, whatever's happening within the room and getting the student to make certain sounds. It's almost kind of, you know, that's a balancing act. But with this program, the students were making sounds that were really encouraging them to speak better and to use whatever speech they had.
Which brings me back to my original vision of teaching every student with a disability how to beatbox. And we want to be everywhere. We want to be in every city. We want to be in Boston. We want to be in every single classroom. We want to be in every single living room. But outside of our beatboxers visiting every school and home, we can't do that. So we invented a beatboxing app that not only teaches kids how to beatbox, but it can be used as a practice tool for students, as well as an assessment tool for speech-language pathologists. Kids will create beatboxing loops by recording their own voice, which speech therapists could then use to assess improvement over time. We can even design the app to feature the most problematic sounds in articulation, like the letter R. So instead of doing a bunch of R flashcards, kids can mimic, let's say, a DJ scratching sound. So in order to bring this app to everybody, funding from the ArcTank will help us do a couple of things. Number one, we can complete our prototype to a full functioning app. And number two, we can further our research and development with speech-language pathologists to design more targeted lessons. Ladies and gentlemen, essentially, we have designed an app that actually makes speech therapy fun. And it's free and accessible. In closing, I want to share a clip with you of Shelly. Shelly's a former beat rocker student of ours, and in the clip, you're going to hear her describe how beatboxing makes her feel.
You beatbox, you feel good or terrific?
I feel terrific. I feel awesome. I feel like that. It's my inner me. When you see the beatboxing me, I show this different side of me that no one else sees.
I think every student with a disability deserves to feel terrific and awesome like Shelly. And you can help us empower our youth today. Thank you very much. Is that it?
Judges, would you like to beatbox a question? Or you can also just say it. That's fine too. James, Christine.
James, thank you for that great presentation. My question is, it's very clear that your app is designed to be fun, make speech therapy fun, and my kids have gone through years of speech therapy. But has there been any studies on how effective beatboxing is compared to traditional speech therapy?
Yeah, so when I applied and was accepted for the Camelback Fellowship, I applied for this particular technology, you want to call it, this app or this program. And what we did was, it wasn't a full study, but we did what we call the semi-private study over the course of a summer. We worked with about 7 kids. They were about the ages between 5 and 7. They all they were all in need of speech therapy. And essentially, we found out a couple of things. Number one, the kids were just so wanting to do it, right? So it's about how you frame it and getting them to really practice. The other thing specific to speech therapy was the number of sound productions that the students were able to make. So typically, let's say they're in the range of like 5 to 7. With beatboxing, they were maybe doubling, sometimes tripling that. So the beautiful thing about beatboxing is that it's essentially, I mean, what is language but a bunch of weird noises that we make, and we just choose to give those noises meaning. And I think that's the same thing with beatboxing. It transcends language in a lot of ways. We have students who are nonverbal that can beatbox, So it's really about how you can frame it. I like to say sometimes we take the speech and the therapy out of speech therapy. So we're not necessarily doing speech, but we're doing music. We're not necessarily doing therapy because we're never looking at the kid and doing any sort of like deficit assessment, like there's anything wrong and something that we have to fix with the kids. It's really about how you can present it in a way where the kid really loves to do it.
Okay. All right.
Other questions?
Yeah, quick question. So did you mention the app was going to be free, or is there a cost to it? And how are you seeing that you're going to distribute this in terms of I mean, obviously you could put it on an app store, but in terms of connecting with other speech therapists, pathologists, right. How will you create broad impact?
Well, I want to do more stuff like this in terms of being able to present at conferences. And the thing is, there's so many different reasons why people need speech therapy. It could be anything from autism, obviously, apraxia, stuttering. I mean, it goes on and on. And I really do feel like when we are able to present this, there's so much excitement, and it's really about getting the kids to really want to do something. You don't ever have to convince or coerce, any of our students to beatbox. They just want to do it, So I feel like it's our ability, or my responsibility, to really
to find the biggest soapbox and the biggest megaphone that I can find in order to really get this out there. But, you know, it obviously touches within speech therapy, but also music therapy, music technology. So there's a bunch of different conferences, et cetera, national organizations that hold their own conferences as well. So I want to make more of an effort to really get in front of people and really articulate what it is that we're doing here with the Beat Rockers.
And just to confirm, is there a revenue model here where you sell the app to the company and then it's free to the students, or what's your?
Well, we want to make the first iteration of this free. So there'll be multiple different beatboxing rhythms. Beatboxing actually is just really broken down into 3 sounds, basically the same building blocks as just any language, BTK. You know, but, and like I mentioned, in terms of further iterations of the app, I really want to make sure that those iterations are going to be informed with clinical research, you know, not just, you know, stories or ideas, but I'd love to, let's say, get a partnership with, I don't know, Autism Speaks, for example, and if we can do our own smaller study and really identify how beatboxing is effective, why it works, and I want to really use those learnings and insert that into the app and further iterations, and I feel like there then lies the opportunity. Maybe it'd be $1 to do this one that will help, you know, young folks who have autism, et cetera. We can also do further iterations of the app in different languages. I was just in Korea and Japan. We did a bunch of workshops there. Again, beatboxing does transcend language. It's really about tapping into young people's desire to be creative and musical.
How do you, as you look to move forward, how do you balance keeping it fun with the information the research gives you? I mean, if you're focused on doing research, how do you make sure this stays something fun and enjoyable as they go as you go forward? How are you going to balance that?
I think it's really important not to do like a bait and switch. Be like, learn how to beatbox, but today we're gonna do speech therapy. Ha, you know? And I think you really have to just be like, listen, we're beatboxing today, you know? And I really think that that's the quality about this approach that makes it really valuable. One of the very clear things that we say in class is that there are no wrong sounds in beatboxing. So we really encourage what the kids can do. We really want to get that creativity, and whatever might sound weird or off, that's actually what makes the young person really unique and great and cool, you know? So to answer your question, it's just to be clear that, like, yes, we're just going to be beatboxing today, but let's say the SLP or the instructor or teacher understands or knows what the student's goals are, like that example that I made with the R sound. If you're having trouble, let's say, doing, like, I don't know, a CH sound, rather than saying, say cheeseburger or checkers, you could be like, give me a shaker sound. Give me a The kid's like, oh, I could do that. So there's no self-awareness. Am I getting this right? Am I getting this wrong? We're just going to have fun. We're going to make music together. And that really opens them up.
We are out of time for questions, but if you'd like to leave the audience with a 2-sentence last thought or beat, whatever you'd like. Well, it seems like that's the theme.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, and again, we've been doing this program for 10 years. It's actually my organization's 10-year anniversary. I have to run and go to the gala tonight. But what we've discovered is that every young person is inherently creative and musical. I feel like as we get older, we have a tendency to lose that. And I feel like what I really want to sort of leave the audience with is this something that we want to, like, nourish and encourage that creativity, but at the same time, really address a specific issue that the young people are facing.
Let's give the team a big hand. Thanks, James, Christine, and Beatsmith.
Thank you.
Next up, pleased to introduce Brendan Aylward. Brendan is the owner of Unified Health and Performance and the founder of AdaptX. Brendan became passionate about supporting people with disabilities and fitness through his volunteer work at Best Buddies and Special Olympics. He has dedicated his career to making the fitness industry more accessible for adaptive athletes. Brendan is a member of Team Hoyt New England and the director of the Central Mass Special Olympics program. Let's give him a round. Come on, let's get some energy up here, right? I know all of you are expecting a little Beatsmith, but I'm going to have to.
Thank you for coming out. I spent most of my time in college with Jacob, but he wasn't a roommate or a teammate. We met through the Best Buddies program, and I became his personal care assistant. But now he is my roommate and my teammate. He lives with me and my fiance on the weekends, and he pulls me through marathons for Team Hoyt. I started volunteering for Special Olympics when I was in high school and was immediately drawn to the unconditional nature of these relationships, how the athletes wanted nothing more than my time and friendship. Go back. Late clicker. Am I hitting the right buttons to cycle through this? All right, always skip the slide, but how the athletes want nothing more than my time and friendship. And I recognized at a young age that I was fortunate to have the opportunities that I do, but I also recognize that not everyone does. In a world that seeks to identify and come up with solutions for what these athletes are unable to do, I wanted my work to help them recognize what their bodies are capable of. My name is Brendan Aylward, and I'm the founder of AdaptX and the owner of Unified Health and Performance, an inclusive strength and conditioning facility in Massachusetts. We worked with nearly 500 athletes in the last 3 years, more than 100 of which have various intellectual and physical disabilities. We've had an athlete who can't see run his first 5K. We've had an athlete who can't walk hand cycle from Maine to Florida. We've had an athlete with Down syndrome deadlift more than 300 pounds, and another start her own business. All of this in one facility. It has been my goal to broadcast what these athletes are capable of and make this model of inclusion nationwide. And my clicker's still not working. There we go. There are nearly 50 million people in the US with a disability, and obesity rates in this population are substantially higher than their non-disabled peers. But we need to start at the root of the problem, and it's not the athletes themselves. There are more than 400,000 fitness professionals in the US, and very few train athletes with disabilities. It's just not part of the educational system, and we intend on changing that. I started creating what has become AdaptX a couple years ago as a resource for staff and interns at my gym. But I recognized that it could have a broader appeal, that we could get into fitness facilities across the country and help all trainers create more inclusive fitness opportunities. I developed a comprehensive course that would allow any trainer the opportunity to run a safe and effective adaptive fitness program. I recognize that there is a gap in the industry. In a world where fitness owners and health clubs are competing for the same clientele, and now with more and more at-home fitness opportunities, being inclusive for athletes with disabilities allows you to stand out in a saturated market. We initially requested $80,000 towards the development of a new facility where I could host in-person seminars and trainings. However, I soon recognized that this money would better be served for marketing to get our product out in front of as many people as possible. We would use direct mail, social media, online assets of engagement to get our product in front of as many fitness professionals as possible. The remainder of the funding will go towards product development to take what I've created and put it into a polished e-learning platform with video modules. If we're able to certify just 1% of fitness professionals, then that is 4,000 coaches with the mission of being more inclusive. If each coach only works with 25 athletes, then we could potentially impact the lives of 100,000 adaptive athletes, helping them become the healthiest and stronger versions of themselves. It has been my professional goal the last few years to have a project worthy of being selected for the ArcTank, and I've revised and refined my product as my visions become more clear. AdaptX has the potential to create a more inclusive fitness industry. It has the potential to change thousands of lives, and if we're fortunate enough today to receive the $60,000, I know that it will. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brendan. Judges, questions?
Can I ask, how is the $60,000, how is that allocated between content development and the marketing that you're talking about?
Yeah, so there's no model to follow in terms of development of a program like this because it's unique in that sense. I've had a couple of preliminary conversations with marketing professionals as well as web developers, and I anticipate that I'll allocate about $20,000 to product development, creating video modules, kind of polishing the e-learning platform, as well as hosting a nice course online so we can reach as many people as possible. And then the remainder of the money will go towards direct mail marketing, which is not a substantial funding request, but all the social media and the online campaigns and such, the Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising to reach those people can be more successful the more funding you're able to put into it. It's able to reach more people. So I anticipate about a 20-40 split, but I don't have a certain answer. It will take a little bit of experimenting to figure out what works.
Yeah, my gut reaction is that 20,000 is not enough for the development part.
Yeah, I already have all the PowerPoint modules and the educational piece created. I just need to transition it into e-learning platform.
My biggest concern is gym membership costs, because a lot of athletes, people in autism don't have a lot of money. How would that work their way around that? Like, say somebody don't play at fitness, let's say your gym.
Yeah.
Like, Planet Fitness is a lot more open than your gym, a lot more smaller. Like, how will that work out?
Yeah, one of my first kind of target audiences and partnerships I hope to create is with the YMCA, because they have an accessible price point. They kind of have a mission of being more inclusive. So if I can help YMCA fitness trainers and the coaches in those gyms develop the confidence to work with these athletes, those athletes will then be able to access the facility. And I know Special Olympics has a partnership with Anytime Fitness where athletes can use those facilities. And if I'm able to help the Anytime Fitness trainers, then they would be more apt to work with those athletes and more comfortable working with those athletes. So cost will be a barrier, but I think if I'm able to work with the right organizations, I can develop the right partnerships that make it as accessible as possible.
So a follow-up question to that. So you train someone at Anytime Fitness. How does that person say, I'm trained to deal with, not deal with you, but help you out? So.
I mean, as my business grows, we could have kind of a resource database of fitness professionals that are certified. We could also provide them with marketing material, like a little banner that says they're AdaptX certified, that they're an inclusive fitness center. But it's still on the onus of the personal trainer to kind of market themselves as an inclusive fitness professional. So my job is to educate them, but it's still their responsibility to a degree to go get the athletes and help them.
So how do you, so I just want to follow up on that.
Yeah.
So let's say you've marketed, we have AdaptX certified trainers and the like, but it's only as good a product as being able to then really work with the individuals with disabilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it just feels a little incomplete of once we do the training of who shall come.
Yeah.
So what, just a little bit more thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, as the marketing grows and the name becomes more recognizable, then it would carry some weight. I can't really put just a resource database on my website right now because no one would know to get there. But if I can get the product out in front of more people, then it can become more recognizable, and the term AdaptX could have a little more weight to it. But right now, it's in its preliminary stages. It's being piloted by a few fitness professionals, and I'm working with a couple YMCAs to run it. But we'll be able to revise the product from there.
Great, thanks.
Do personal trainers, you mentioned that education is a big piece of this. Do personal trainers need to be certified? And if so, who does that?
Yeah, so there's no certification right now. There's a couple on the market, but they don't really bridge the gap between disabilities and fitness. They may talk about disabilities as an isolated topic, or they talk about fitness as an isolated topic. My goal has been to bridge the gap between special education and fitness, so they have the tools to understand the disability and then apply it to a fitness program. So there's no governing body that certifies what course is best. I've taken what I've done the last few years, probably working with as many adaptive athletes as anyone, and put that into a course that could be digestible for any fitness trainer.
Got it. Have you had any conversations with a state or regulatory bodies about sort of requiring certification for this and using some piece of this as in sort of your program as part of that certification?
Yeah, so there's a couple organizations that certify personal trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, and they have inclusive fitness certs, but they're not really marketed as their main product. So I can apply to have my course CEU approved, which means someone who takes it can get credit towards those other courses as well and their renewal of their membership. But right now, there's no specific governing body that says which is best.
Brendan, we are out of time, but would you like to share one last ask of this room of supporters?
Yeah. Yeah, I think my product has the potential to reach thousands of people, and it helps athletes kind of realize what they're capable of with their own bodies and become the healthiest and strongest version of themselves, which I think is important for anyone.
Thank you, Brendan, for your passion. Thanks for joining us today. All right, next up, let's welcome Becca Zibovitz and Liz Offen presenting the 4A Club, Autism, Aging, Alexa, and Access. Becca is YACAD's Director of International Operations. For nearly a decade, Becca has worked with YACAD to ensure the full inclusion of people with developmental disabilities. Prior to joining, she completed her Bachelor's and Master's of Public Policy at the University of Maryland. Joining Becca for the question and answering portion is Liz Offen, the Executive Director, the second largest region in the network. And Liz is a well-respected teacher with over 30 years of pioneering effective methods for children of all learning styles and abilities. Let's welcome them to the stage.
Good afternoon, ArcTank. My name is Becca Zibovitz, and I'm here to present the 4A Club on behalf of YACAD, the National Jewish Council for Disabilities. YACAD is an international organization that promotes the inclusion and supports individuals with developmental disabilities across the world. Specifically here in New England, we have a multitude of programs that support hundreds of individuals, including over 80 older adults with autism. So, yes, no? What I'm here to speak to you about today is social isolation. Social isolation, according to the New York Times in an article that was published just last week, is more deadly than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Think about that for a second. 15 cigarettes a day. Combine that with the fact that studies have found that over 50% of adults with autism will experience chronic loneliness in their lifetime. We're not talking about a fluffy topic here. We're really talking life and death. With that, I'd like to introduce you to David. David is 45 years old. He has autism. He's minimally verbal, and he takes 8 medications 4 times a day. He loves The Wizard of Oz and knows everything there is to know about the weather and the Red Sox. Before David got involved with YACAD, his social interaction opportunities were really only his day program, which ran from 9 to 3:30, 5 days a week. Since getting involved with us, he now goes on Sunday programs, weekend retreats, and 4 days a week he's at our drop-in center playing games, hanging out with friends, and quite frankly, having a social life. But at the end of the day, David still goes home to an empty room where he is bored and alone. YACAD can't be with him 24 hours a day. At the same time, there's a new technology that has come on the market that's become ubiquitous, the smart home. We all know what the smart home can do for us, but what can the smart home do for David? Well, it can help him video call his brother, check the Red Sox score, find out the weather, play The Wizard of Oz, remind him to take his medication. Seems like a no-brainer. Why isn't David and why aren't other adults with autism using this amazing technology that could improve their lives? The simple answer is accessibility. A traditional smart home requires that you speak to it. When you're nonverbal, or your verbal output is not understood by the device, it's useless to you. This has been internationally recognized as an issue. In Canada, there's a campaign going on to get the Google Home to recognize the voice of individuals with Down syndrome. But even they will tell you that is years away. Our participants can't wait that long. The 4A Club is here to build a bridge between adults with autism and a technology that can improve their lives. We would start with a pilot program of 30 individuals, providing them with an Alexa Show device, working with each individual to determine their needs, wants, abilities. We would adapt each device based on the need of the person, and that could be as simple as a little $3 push button. We would teach them how to use it and provide ongoing support. But the real magic of the 4A Club is the toolkit. We would produce a toolkit that would be available to anyone working with adults with autism and other developmental disabilities, be it parents, family members, group homes, organizations like ourselves, that would provide a roadmap on how to adapt any smart home device in a cheap, easy way that does not require specialized technology. We would be providing imagery, graphics, to help with the specialization. And based on our experience with the 30 participants, we'd be sending out a guide of how to train individuals and the best practices that we've found. The toolkit would be distributed throughout the Yachad global network, hopefully the ARC network, we hope, and around the world as a free resource to people to make lives better. We're asking today for an $80,000 investment to help us fight social isolation in adults with autism.
Alexa,
Questions
have
from the judges?
ArcTank fund the 4A Club.
You can do it again at the end, maybe.
So in your write-up, it mentioned that working collaboratively with Amazon was sort of on the critical path. Is there any progress on that?
So I'm very happy to tell you about Amazon. One of the things, though, that we are in conversation with Amazon, and they're very, very interested because they recognize that this is an unmet need, and this technology should exist. I think we can all agree to that. But Amazon is a euphemism. You know, the Alexa is really a euphemism for this type of technology. We are not dependent on Amazon. If you're out there, we'd love you to come all the way through with us as a partner and help create the adaptive technology we're looking for. But we can do it as simple as Becca showed with buttons. We can also continue to work to create other kinds of adaptive technology with other folks. There's, Google is in this, and LifePod just came to the market. There's other ways to go forward. We're not dependent on Amazon.
So how does this button work?
Push it. So you just pushed and it said, what's the score of the Patriots game? What that does is it interfaces with Alexa, and then Alexa will give the score. You also have two other buttons. Try one.
Alexa, what's the weather today?
What's the weather today? Everybody wants to know the weather. We have to know how to dress appropriately. If you don't have vocal output, you can't talk to Alexa.
So how many buttons would you need?
So that's the point. What we're going to do is our whole project is really based on bringing personnel into the home. You'll see from our budget, it's really very personnel heavy because we're customizing, we are individualizing to what people want, what they want to have conversations with Alexa, what they want to hear, how they want to break their own isolation. Maybe somebody wants a game, maybe somebody wants a movie. That's why we want the Alexa show, because the video also allows them to do video interface. So we can have a lot of buttons. That's at the simplest form. These are $3 a piece, as Becca said. But what we want in the long run is to have a larger app available so that if they were to have, let's say, their iPad with an app, it would speak with many, many more choices. And this is the technology that's on the horizon, but we don't want to wait. We have a marginalized population of older adults with autism and other developmental disabilities, and they're left out of this technology revolution. So the buttons, we can have as many buttons as somebody wants. The goal is to have something with even greater choice.
And so what would you use the money for? Is it development or?
So the funding, as you can see, and I have a budget over here, I can look more specifically, but basically it's primarily for personnel. Okay. So the cost of the actual equipment is really only about $120 per person for an iHome, Alexa show, and for some dots, and for some plugs, so they can, do other things. That's really not the cost. The cost is for personnel. What we need is to come in and figure out exactly what works, how to make it efficient, and then to write it all up in our toolkit. Because the goal of this is to create a toolkit that we want to distribute for free. We want this out there. We want to distribute it in our Yachad network. We want to distribute it in the ARC network. There are thousands and thousands of people who can benefit, and we just need this startup funding to create the toolkit to get it out there. So there would be a frequently asked questions. There would be probably a video to go along with it. Essentially, that's what the toolkit is doing.
But you're basically beta testing this with 30 adults.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And to sort of test the model with 30
The
adults.
model, the graphics, what do
Right,
people like?
right.
How
And-
long
and
does
that
it
would
take
then create
to teach?
a toolkit.
Yes.
Right, to go out.
Yes,
Right.
as we go along.
We would also be learning from them.
Right.
What are the best uses? What can we recommend? What apps are too complicated? What apps work? Really just feeling it all out so that when we produce this toolkit, it is out of the box, ready to go.
Right. So, if I may, so beta, basically interactive, it's a pilot of 30. At the end, how are you going to determine that it's successful to then take the pilot to scale?
So success is
It's okay, you can finish the
Okay,
question.
we have a lot of measures for success, and success basically will be when people have improved health, they take their meds on time, they have greater conversations at home, we write it up, we share it, we get the toolkit out there.
Thoughts for the audience?
So I think our final thought is that we want to disrupt the status quo. The technology is out there, we want to bring it to a very marginalized population, and we can do that.
Terrific. Thank you, Becca and Liz. All right, our fourth presentation is Creating Opportunities Through Entrepreneurial Ecosystems by Jenny Anderson. Jenny is the co-founder, CEO, and visionary behind Celebrate EDU. Inspired by her brother on the autism spectrum, she's passionate about leveling the playing field for individuals with disabilities to live more meaningful lives. Jenny is at the cutting edge of educational innovation, providing opportunities and fighting for creative solutions for change. Jenny was named one of the 19 social entrepreneurs to watch by Conscious Company magazine, is a global good fund LEAP entrepreneur, a Ewing Marion Kaufman eShip ecosystem builder, and a 2019 Ashoka Emerging Innovator. Joining Jenny for the Q&A is Linda Gunn Anderson. Please welcome to the stage.
Hi, everyone. I want to start by telling you our story. There's no sound. Cool dude. He likes superhero movies, eating pizza, and playing video games. Brent also happens to be on the autism spectrum. Just like you and I, after Brent graduated from high school, he wanted to get a job.
It wasn't easy. I applied for 10 different jobs and never even got an interview. I found a job coach who convinced a grocery store manager to hire me. I worked there for 6 months and I hated every second of it. It was loud. They called me in on my days off. I had to do something different every day. It was physically and mentally exhausting. That's when my mom helped me start a business. I wrote a book called Unintentional Humor. Then someone asked me to tell my story. I invited my sister to be in the audience.
This was my light bulb moment. This is why I started Celebrate EDU. Because unfortunately, Brent's situation is not unique. Currently, 85% of adults with developmental disabilities are unemployed in the United States. And the opportunities that are available to them do not take into account their individual skills and interests. I knew when Brent found a solution that was creative and different, that worked for him, that I wanted to start an organization that would do the same thing for other people with disabilities. Celebrate EDU programs are based on entrepreneurship, and the special sauce is that we encourage people with disabilities to find their interests, their strengths, and turn that into an opportunity. So far, we have served 755 self-advocates with disabilities. People like Sophia, who started by launching a YouTube channel doing makeup tutorial videos, and now has a job working at Sephora. And Faison, who channeled his interest in food and cooking into creating a catering business with his mom and with the support of our partner organization in Las Vegas. Our programs teach skills that impact all aspects of life: communication, goal setting, problem solving and self-advocacy, and digital skills, which are a barrier for many people with disabilities to find employment today. Celebrate EDU is proud to be opening doors to opportunities that are not available to people with disabilities. While there are programs out there that teach job skills, Celebrate EDU is unique because our programs are built around the individual's interests and creating those into opportunities for them. Like it was for Brent, self-employment is a great option for many people with disabilities. In fact, individuals with disabilities are 2 times more likely to be self-employed than the general population. Celebrate EDU is proud to be a leader in this space, pushing for more opportunities through self-employment and entrepreneurship. Our students are getting jobs, getting internships, and starting their own businesses. But we need your help to help us bring these opportunities to people here in the Northeast. We plan to do this by building entrepreneurial ecosystems. This will create sustainable change here in the Northeast. We will engage community members, families, self-advocates, service providers, local businesses, and government agencies to all work towards the shared goal of encouraging entrepreneurial education and more opportunities for job and employment. We will do this using our plan that we have used in other communities across the country. We'll start by identifying 3 communities that are forward-thinking, innovative, and willing to push the boundaries of what is currently being done. Next, we will provide our programming. Celebrate EDU team will come in, run our workshops, run our community courses, and individual events, really catalyzing this experience and launching a new future for people with disabilities. And finally, while we are there, we will train organizations to continue our work after we are done, after we leave. This is a huge key to our success and a key to sustainable change. By empowering service providers with the tools and resources they need to continue our programming after we leave, we are helping them think more entrepreneurially and create more opportunity. We are asking you today for $75,000 to help us bring and create 3 entrepreneurial ecosystems here in the Northeast. This will directly impact 125 self-advocates, 50 family and community members, and train 25 service providers in our programs. This all started because of my brother Brent, but we need the support of people like you to allow us to bring this opportunity to everybody, regardless of ability or disability, to allow them to create meaningful lives. Thank you.
All right, Linda, come on up, and thank you for hitting the 5-minute mark exactly. So, judges, questions?
So what kind of service providers have been the most successful for you to work with in the past? Like, what are some of the traits?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
thank you for that.
Yeah. We work with a variety of, so we have worked with public schools, private schools. Sure. We've found a lot of success working with vocational rehab vendors. So our programming meets a variety of the goals required for the pre-employment transition services. And so when we find an organization that could be an ARC chapter in California, or it could be a local job coach, and they are providing these services, they're able to use our programs and fulfill those needs that are required for the government funding. And they're actually able to create sustainable income sources by using our programs and serving many, many people. So we've seen it work in a variety of ways. And this new option for the ecosystem is what we've done in Cincinnati. And we're working with 7 different cross-disability organizations, and I know that's sometimes unique. So we have the Down Syndrome Society, the Autism Society, Spina Bifida, Easter Seals, Department of Developmental Disabilities, Children's Hospital. All of those people have been trained to utilize our programming so they can create sustainable change in Cincinnati, and that's what we'd like to do here.
When you create the new programming with these partners, a year later, who are they trained the trainers so that they're continuing to teach the programs a year or 2 later? I'm just trying to understand, how do the partners keep this consistent and top of mind, and then also how do you scale it beyond those 3 partners, that you would start, say, in the Northeast?
Right. So our goal would be to train multiple organizations in each community, so it wouldn't just be reliant on one organization getting trained. We also always encourage multiple people from each organization to be trained to facilitate our programs, so that if there is staff turnover, things that do happen, there are people who are trained to continue the work. We also, it's a membership fee, or membership model, our programs, so everyone that we train, every organization, pays at least $500 to be a member, and that provides ongoing support from Celebrate EDU, and additional training and development if they wanted more people to teach the programs going forward. So that allows them to really be able to invest time and energy into making sure that they are creating a sustainable way for the programs to continue long term. The majority of our program partners have been running our programs for multiple years, so that's typically our goal, is to see that continue on.
So it's really hard to start a business and to be an entrepreneur. So you're proposing to train people to, train people to be entrepreneurs. But once you train the entrepreneur, the would-be entrepreneur, then what? I mean, does that entrepreneur get more support afterwards?
Yeah, so great question. We have about 10% of our students who have gone through the Spark program, which is our most intensive entrepreneurship education program, have launched businesses. And that's in part because what our ecosystem model does is brings in a lot of different people that would be the support needed to actually successfully launch a business. However, most of our students learn so much from entrepreneurship education. It's not just about starting a business, but it is important to us that we are establishing a variety of stakeholders who are all engaged in helping really create opportunities, whether that's through finding funding opportunities or finding connections with the entrepreneurial community locally. So something that we build into the ecosystem model is that ongoing support for someone that does want to start a business. And I hope that answered your question.
Can I ask a conversion rate question?
Yes.
Of the 125 people you train, how many of them will have long-term jobs a year later? And of the organizations that you train, how many incremental jobs would you expect to be established within a 5-year period?
So in terms of the actual self-advocates that we work with, we have seen about 50% of the students that go through our programming are still either in high school or in a transition program. So we have yet to see them out in the workforce yet, but we do know that 89% of them are reporting that they are more interested in learning more about business and entrepreneurship as part of their journey.
What would your expectation be?
I would say, well, we have one partner who is using our program specifically for job placement and training, and they right now are placing and have had people within a job. I think it's 34% of their people are still in a job a year later that went through the Spark program that they placed in a job.
One more rapid fire question. If not, Jenny and Linda, share final thoughts with the audience.
Entrepreneurship education goes far beyond starting a business. There's so many benefits that this community needs to be able to tap into, to be able to understand their strengths, their interests, and how to turn that into an opportunity. And our hope is that we are able to bring that chance to people here in the Northeast.
Fantastic. Let's give them a round. Now that we're past the halfway mark, I thought this would be a good time to ask Phil to come back up and share some highlights of companies that have come through here before.
David, thank you. And just as we are at the halfway mark, this is how spectacular this event is. This is my second year in this room, and it takes weeks after this day is done for you to get all of these applicants out of your head. Because you think about all these amazing ideas and how many other ideas are out there that could be funded, that need to be funded. That's why, the generosity, Stephen's generosity, Joanne's vision, this is just, it's a really incredible afternoon. We have 3 more presentations, but before we go to those, I want to read this to you because this is an incredible statistic. Over the past 2 years, ArcTank has awarded $400,000. Let me say that again, $400,000. These awards went to big thinkers, big doers, bold groups who sought new solutions to existing problems. And again, the amazing thing about ArcTank 3.0 is with the 2 other organizations this year, there's a potential of giving out, and I'm fairly certain that they'll give out all the money, $250,000 this year. So better, bigger, bolder every single year. The premise of the ArcTank is to simplify the grant-giving process to award money quickly without restrictions. And if any of you are in the industry, you know that can be a tough thing to do. That's what this is about. There are risks involved, though, when awarding money in this way. Projects may uncover issues, timeframes may be slowed down because of outside influences, a lot of hurdles. Funded ideas may be opened up to new ideas, which can divert efforts and time. Priorities may shift, project leaders may change, all of it. The 6 funded projects so far have experienced, obviously, some of those issues along the way. But we are happy to report that despite unplanned hiccups, each of the past recipients continue to make progress and are positively changing lives each and every day. Today out in the lobby, each of the past 6 funded ideas are present to share some of their details on their past project. If you didn't have a chance to talk with them, please, we ask that you do so during the break. In your program books, you will find a summary of their individual accomplishments, and then you can speak to them directly, and I'm sure they have many more details than are in the book. So, here are some of the highlights. Pathways to Inclusive Healthcare, presented by the University of Massachusetts Medical School, address the health disparities and suboptimal health status experienced by people with autism on the autism spectrum disorder and intellectual and development disabilities by creating a pipeline of healthcare professionals who are trained and equipped to provide quality healthcare to this population. Specifically, Pathways to Inclusive Healthcare created an intensive gap year program for college graduates entering into advanced healthcare studies. This past May, the first cohort of scholars graduated, and scholars reported the program met the intent of the project. Each one, as they enter medical school, find themselves more equipped, more prepared, and better to serve this diverse community. The 2020 scholars are beginning their gap year program right now, and applicants and applications are already being reviewed for the larger class of 2021. And I think just to keep the energy up, we can applause at the end of each one. All right, next up. The Center for Public Representation presented an incubator project on supported decision-making. The goal of this particular project was to disrupt the pipeline to guardianship for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and autism. Since the ArcTank, CPR as it's called, has completed its 6 pilot projects and are using the found information on those projects to develop more training and increase outreach efforts, as well as developing a network of relationships here in Massachusetts throughout the country and across the globe. Additionally, CPR has formed an extensive coalition to develop a Massachusetts-supported decision-making statute. So far, the coalition has been successful in having filed bills in both the Massachusetts House and the Senate. Why WaterWise from the YMCA of the North Shore addressed the alarming statistic that children with autism are 160 times more likely to suffer drowning fatalities than the general pediatric population. More than 90% of the deaths of children with autism are because of drowning. The WaterWise program was designed to make swimming lessons more accessible while being able to meet individualized instructional needs throughout the specialized plans. Since receiving funding from the ArcTank, the WaterWise program has provided life-saving water safety swim lessons for more than 100 children and are currently expanding the program to 4 more of their own pools. WaterWise is also serving as the model for a national pilot program in 2020 through the YMCA of the USA. The Autism Law Enforcement Education Coalition, or ALEC, presented by the ARC of South Norfolk, created a specialized training for first responders to hear directly from other first responders who have personal and professional experience with people with autism. The program increases understanding of unique needs, increases the ability to interact effectively and promote safety, and reduces the risk of injury to a person with autism. In the past year, the ALEC program has increased the number of certified ALEC trainers, originally focusing on Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine, and New Hampshire. The ALEC program has now expanded to partnerships and training in Alabama, Connecticut, Delaware, Kentucky, Mississippi, and Vermont. Stronger community opportunities through organized transportation, created by New Star, is an application that addresses the need to have better, readily available, cost-effective, and safe transportation for people with intellectual disabilities. Transportation is paramount, as you know, in order to live, work, learn, and thrive. Scoot sent out to disrupt the rideshare community with an app designed specifically tailored to a population that was not having their needs met through the traditional models. Since receiving their funding last year, the Scoot app has gone through extensive adaptations through the beta testing of the project. The app is now in its next generation and is available through Apple and Android stores, with the goal of further testing and planning next phase upgrades. By 2020, a licensing program will be released and expand Scoot's geographic reach, with 10 new partners expressing interest in purchasing the agreement. Virtual reality functional communication activities, or VRFCA, developed by Interactive Media Institute, address the social communication deficits of individuals on the autism spectrum in an affordable and an accessible way. The goal of the project is to leverage virtual reality technology and evidence-based social learning strategies to promote quality of life by enhancing independence, self-advocacy, and social integration. In the past year, IMI exceeded their projections and have begun to share their research and tools with national and international audiences. The data on the impact of the VRFCA tools indicate 81% improvements in activity completion observed by a clinician, 63% increase in activity completion as observed by parents, and there has been a 35% increase in activity-specific vocabulary words, and 22% improvement in activities of comprehension. As a result of the findings, IMI has been invited to share its data in national conferences hosted by multiple events with Autism Tree Project Foundation, and were featured at the JetBlue Horizons event. It really is impressive. All of that is what ArcTank is about. 6 organizations thinking big, thinking bold, addressing real needs, creating a wave of positive disruption, directly impacting hundreds of lives with the goal to continue to impact even more. David?
All right, so we had a professional beatboxer, and if you recognize that very last one, IMI, we're gonna bring back Ian Miller for the 5th presentation. Ian Miller is the director of IMI's Autism Center of Excellence, a nonprofit where a team of medical doctors, psychologists, and speech pathologists and virtual reality developers create tools that improve the quality of life with persons with autism. The center's objective is to clinically validate VR-based therapeutic and training services while providing technical, social skill, and job readiness trainings to individuals with autism that result in meaningful full employment. So let's welcome Ian back up. He apparently is the professional at winning money here, and so let's see if you can do it again, all right?
I'm looking for the clicker now. Yeah, clicker has disappeared, but
So I guess we are setting the stage for you not to do it this time around.
uh-oh, yeah. Okay, well.
Do we have the remote?
He was just showing it to me in the back room. Sure, I'll give you a little.
All right, fantastic. All right.
Okay.
We'll add another 5 seconds to your clock.
Great, thank you. Well, good afternoon. Last year, with funding from ArcTank 2.0, Interactive Media Institute developed virtual reality tools that help students with autism learn functional communication. And as we formed community partnerships and worked with participants, we began to think more comprehensively about how we serve them, from childhood into adulthood. In particular, we were influenced by a set of workshops that we held with a group of teens, where we focused on engaging them with virtual reality and related science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM, disciplines. And as we worked with participants engage their interests, we began to see that STEM was a popular and proficient area for them. And in fact, our observations are backed by research. Students on the autism spectrum often gravitate towards STEM disciplines, where skills like excellent memory, logical thinking patterns, and attention to detail are markers of success. Now, companies like SAP, Hewlett-Packard, Freddie Mac, and Microsoft have taken notice too, along with a host of others. finding that the unique talents, perspectives, and skill sets of individuals with autism bring tremendous value to their businesses and improve their bottom line. Since the number of roles conducive to these skills, such as software testing, computer programming, and data science, are projected to rise exponentially in the coming years, these companies plan to hire more neurodiverse talent moving forward. But despite these exciting developments and calls for inclusion, less than 60% of young adults with autism ever work for pay outside of their home between high school and their early 20s. And those who are employed tend to work part-time in low-wage jobs. Additionally, post-secondary education is a critical pathway to employment for young adults, but only 36% ever attend a 4-year or 2-year college, trade, or technical training school. So, while companies are seeking more neurodiverse talent than ever, avenues for training and education seem to be few and far between. At Interactive Media Institute, we seek to bridge this gap while continuing to create innovative virtual reality-based tools for people with autism. So today, I am requesting $199,000 to implement and certify a self-fulfilling ecosystem where individuals with autism drive the development, refinement, and dissemination of therapeutic tools for their peers while gaining important work experience and job readiness training. We call it Autism Works. Autism Works is a scalable, 2-tiered program composed of discrete components that can be funded separately, but ultimately forms an ecosystem where students create virtual reality tools that, while earning technical certificates, send those tools to be tested in workshops and focus groups, refine those tools based off of the feedback from those workshops and focus groups, and ultimately help us disseminate them to the public. So, the first tier of Autism Works is a 7-month computer programming and virtual reality development course delivered to a cohort of qualified students with autism in an after-school format. Students in this course create virtual reality tools that we can test in workshops and focus groups, while earning technical certificates that qualify them for jobs such as computer programmers, software testers, and virtual reality developers. Now, adjunctive social skills training and interview preparation help ensure that the students in our courses are adequately prepared for the jobs and internships that we place them in. And in this tier, we're partnering with the National Foundation for Autism Research, or NFAR. And now NFAR has over 7 years of experience offering variations of technical training programs in software testing and computer programming, and their graduates are currently earning living wages at companies like Qualcomm, Intuit, and Solar Turbines. Now, the second tier of Autism Works addresses recent directives set out by the White House, the National Science Foundation, and many of those private companies. They call for engaging more underrepresented students and including more diverse voices in STEM. So here, we're partnering with local schools and organizations to deliver a series of monthly workshops where students, just like the teens that we've worked with in the past, participate in informal learning activities that introduce them to STEM. These include learning to code using Legos, creating their own virtual reality environments, or exploring the effects of climate change on our oceans using virtual reality. Now, we will also use these workshops as an avenue to apply and collect feedback on students' projects from the technical training course in Tier 1, thereby creating an ecosystem where the experiences, skill sets, and direct participation of individuals with autism drives innovation. Today, I've outlined the vision of Interactive Media Institute's Autism Center of Excellence for a disruptive, inclusive, and pioneering new ecosystem that creates jobs and improves the lives of individuals across the spectrum. An ecosystem where barriers are meant to be broken, expectations are exceeded. Autism Works elevates the voices of young adults and ensures their place in the neurodiverse workforce for the future. Thank you.
Questions from the judges.
How do you qualify for the job experience?
How do the students qualify?
Yeah, well, what you consider qualified for the autism to like computer skill level, like how you judge that?
Oh, how are we including our students in our program?
Well, you say you want someone autism that is qualified. How are they qualified? Like, is it relevant? Like,
so our students, the students that we qualify for, that would qualify for our technical training course, would be higher functioning kids on the Asperger's kind of scale that already have an interest in computer programming and maybe somewhat of a background, but nothing that they don't have to be proficient in these areas to be introduced into our course. And then with that, while we are just focusing on some of these students that have an interest and might maybe higher functioning levels, our workshops that we're also conducting kind of serve the broader spectrum or range of individuals with autism. So they're more informal learning activities that can really engage students in a variety of STEM disciplines and kind of show them different paths forward, because after high school, a lot of people do kind of miss out on services or don't go back to school, things like that. So we're trying to highlight to them the various pathways that they can pursue after high school.
Can I ask a follow-on question to that? You're looking for 12 students in that particular phase 2. How long will it take you to identify 12 students who fit all the criteria? And when they're in phase 2, do they have one-on-one coaching?
Okay, so it will take us about 3 months. In the budget, we put 3 months for curriculum development and recruitment of participants. NFAR has over 6,000 families in their network in San Diego. We've also included marketing in our budget so we can go out to other schools, therapy centers, and seek these individuals. So by month 3, when we're ready to start the program, we will have all 12 of our participants.
And how many, I'm trying to get a sense of the market. If you had unlimited seats in this program, how many qualified students could there be?
It depends on the level of funding. So
you have unlimited funding. How many
right,
students are there?
So then we can have 10 courses with 10 to 12 kids each, because what we do is we have technical training professors or high school teachers that we hire to come in and teach this after school course. But we also are hiring technical assistants that help them with each class so that we can ensure that we have an adequate ratio of about two to three students per teacher. So they are getting very focused training and personalized support. So depending on the level of support, we can kind of slide that up and down and say, if we can't get everything, then we can help 6 students with this level of funding, or we can help 30 students with this level of funding. But we do want to make sure that each student has at his or her adequate support levels.
And what is the age? Is it high school? Is it
so
after high school,
we're looking for just coming out of high school, so high school seniors to young adults up to 23, 24 years old who aren't seeking secondary education at the moment. So that would be our age range for the technical training, the tier 1, and then for the STEM workshops where we're really focusing on engaging this broad spectrum of individuals. We're going from middle school all the way through to high school. I'm including them, and we've already had some successful kind of early iterations of these workshops with students, and yeah, they've been throughout that age range and have really enjoyed what we do.
And would these programs be free, or would people have to pay for them?
The STEM workshops are all free. NFAR in the past, they have charged a small tuition, I think it's about $50 to $100 per month for students to come, only because it's an incentive for them to be there and to continue this course. It's nothing to be making money on or taking profits from, but it's an incentive for them to be there and attend school and progress through the course.
Can I add one unsolicited comment? Yes. Just because this is, I write a lot about this, and I think there was a recent story about this, but a lot of kids who may be on the spectrum have the skills, but the companies, they have biases built in the interview process. Yes. So they never make it through the interview process. I think there was this one, you probably read that same story, where someone now is a programmer at Microsoft, but he had applied 10 times, and when they reworked the interview process, he finally got in, and he's very successful now. So hopefully you can work on that end too somehow.
Absolutely, and one thing that we have found with our teachers that teach the technical training course is that it's equally a good opportunity for them to learn how to incorporate students on the spectrum in their classes. And something that we want to do with the workshops is involve typical peers in those workshops, so they're learning how to interact with students on the spectrum. And then ultimately going to these employers and helping them train and learn how to hire and go through the hiring process with people with different needs and disabilities. And so that's a tremendous point, and something that really we do want to focus on moving forward, is helping these companies learn how to incorporate individuals on the autism spectrum.
Okay, not a question, but a statement. I'm not going to ask a question, David, I promise. Just a statement. Statement about the ecosystem.
Should we let him do that? Okay, all right.
Because Shirley hit the point that I was going to make, which is you got to really, I think, articulate the ecosystem, because working with the companies to
Right.
figure out what needs they have. Because you talk about, industry certification, where you got to understand the company first.
Mhm.
Building the curriculum, you got to understand where the outcome is.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just a really great point that I wanted to echo.
And I'm going to be disruptive and ask one more question. What's the budget breakdown between phase 1 and phase 2?
So phase 1 is the curriculum development. I have it, it's about 60, phase 1 is, the curriculum development is $43,000 approximately. That's, incorporating the perspectives of medical doctors, psychologists, technical training professors. And then the delivery of this for 12 students is $120,000. But on my last slide, I guess I don't have it up there, I provided you with the breakdown. For 40% funding, we can do a partial technical training course. For 70%, we can do a partial technical training course and a partial workshop. And then for the full funding amount, we can do everything comprehensively and very, very in-depth for all these students.
Fantastic. I love how I've lost control of the judges. And you got Shirley writing articles, Ralph saying, you have unlimited funding. And so, Ian, would you like to leave the audience with a final thought?
Yeah, well, last year, ArcTank 2.0 really catapulted Interactive Media Institute's Autism Center of Excellence to new heights, creating these tools that help individuals with autism learn how to integrate into their daily lives. And this year, we're bringing a bigger, a bolder, and more comprehensive plan to the judges, and we hope that you see the potential of this ecosystem that we're creating to really impact the lives of individuals across the lifespan and throughout the spectrum. So thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Let's now welcome Lauren Applebaum and presentation on LA Lab for Entertainment Professionals with Disabilities. Lauren is VP of Respectability, a nonprofit that's fighting stigmas and advancing opportunities for people with disabilities. As a person with an acquired invisible disability, Lauren's current work has been focused on making workplaces more inclusive and accessible. At Respectability, Lauren engages decision makers to improve quality and number of authentic, diverse, and inclusive presentations of people with disabilities on TV and film. She also oversees the organization's non-political outreach, working with candidates to ensure their campaigns are accessible and educated. A journalist by trade, Lauren is managing director of the Respectability Report, a publication at the intersection of disability and politics, as well as the talent behind the hashtag Respectability campaign, which highlights and models employers that demonstrate how hiring workers with disabilities benefits the employer, the employee, and society. Please welcome Lauren.
Thank you very much. When it comes to showing people with disabilities on TV, we're almost never shown. And when we are, we're always shown in a negative light. And that really, it causes negative impacts in everyday life. My name, as was mentioned, is Lauren Applebaum, and I, as you mentioned, am a person with a disability. And I lead the Hollywood initiative at Respectability, a nonprofit organization that gets people to respect the abilities of people with disabilities. We've already developed with 40 partners, where's the clicker? We've already developed, with 40 partners, the first ever Hollywood Disability Inclusion Toolkit, and now are training partners with major studios. For most people in America today, their most intimate relations are with screens. Most of you have your phones today, and what you see and hear on those screens influence how you act, including, who you hire. There are several outstanding efforts today to enable actors with disabilities to make it in Hollywood. However, someone has to give them that chance. And those are the people behind the camera, the writers, the producers, the casting directors. Respectability is working in that space. Our first TV series, as you see above, was created by one of our board members, Born This Way. It shows 7 diverse individuals with Down syndrome doing things that everyone in their 20s and 30s want to do: work, fall in love, get married, and succeeding in their communities. Since then, we've consulted on more than 24 television series featuring actors and characters on the autism spectrum and with other disabilities. Our next venture is where we need your support. We need people with disabilities to work behind the camera so that they can make key decisions. While data exists for all other marginalized populations, for a variety of factors, there is none supporting how many people with disabilities work in the studios. Our goal is to make that a meaningful data point, and we need to do so now. With the advent of so many streaming services, there is a new, unprecedented hiring opportunity that will not be open for long. That window of opportunity will be closing in the next few years. So last summer, we hosted the inaugural pilot lab opportunity for people with disabilities who work behind the camera. We had 22 participants, 16 in the emerging track and 6 in a more advanced mid-career track. I vividly remember one participant named Marissa. She has Down syndrome, and she told 20 Disney executives how she worked on several major films as a production assistant. And I watched as their eyes really widened as they realized that people with developmental disabilities not only have the desire to work in this industry, but have the skills to do so. And she had the opportunity to present her credentials to more than a half dozen studios. We have commitments from these studios up above here that if you fund our program, that they will host our lab next year, offering networking opportunities, resume and interview coaching, and more. The potential of scaling this program exists, including developing targeted cohorts with each of these studios. This year will be special, the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Our short-term goal, train 25 people with disabilities, placing a minimum of 10 graduates in competitive employment in studios within 1 year of completing the lab. Our long-term goal, increasing equitable hiring of people with disabilities and accurate representation on and off screen. We will do this by providing real-life training experiences at major studios and playing the role of matchmaker. Our pilot program in 2019 already has placed 5 of the 16 emerging track graduates in positions at Sony and Disney and Paramount. Apologies. I ask for your investment of $43,750 so people with developmental disabilities can be in the position to tell authentic stories about our community. Your investment is a win-win-win. It wins for people with disabilities who will get jobs in Hollywood. It wins for their employers who will have talented people who will help tell authentic stories about people with disabilities. And it wins for the tens of millions of people with disabilities who will be able to see themselves authentically portrayed on screen. Thank you.
Questions from the judges?
One case you don't get the 43,000, where will the cuts come from? Or will you cut anything?
Sure. So you're asking what?
Say you ask for 43,000.
Sure. So that is exactly 50% of the cost of how much it costs for the lab.
What case you don't get that about money, or you don't get other 43,000?
So we are confident that we will be able to get the other 50% from the studios. So for the pilot program, we were able to get funding from Walt Disney Studios, NBC Universal, and Jonathan Murray of Bunna Murray Productions. And we are already in talks with all 3 of those individuals, as well as other studios. And the studios that hosted us last year also provided in-kind donations in terms of space and food and obviously their time. So, and we are confident that, that over the years that we will be able to get this funded by the studios completely. And we feel that
by them seeing that by funding from within the disability community, that there being a commitment there will make them feel even more confident for them to feel, that there's a desire from within the community that will make them want to support it even more. So we do feel that this will be sustained for years to come by the entertainment industry. We've had conversations ongoing with them already.
So can you help explain why you think the studios will fund this going forward, but funded the last year but won't fund this year then?
Oh, no, I do believe they were. So last year, they did not fund it 100%. We had, Respectability has many other programs, so a lot of it came out of just our operational budget. So we had just basically I came to them and said, we have different parts, and I said, can we get some money from you? And where we did get, why some of them said that they're very interested in funding is because we were able to turn around and place people with them. The studios where they are most happy is where we were able to say, hey, we have individuals that are qualified to step into a job with you. 3 people were hired by Disney, 1 by Sony, 1 by Paramount. More have had interviews. And what they said is, if you are able to give us qualified individuals that can have jobs with us, then we are more likely to support you. Because they care about having diverse individuals working for them. That, everyone wants to bring in diversity. That's how you have more diverse stories. That is something that is important to them. And sometimes they even say, we don't know where to find people with disabilities. Can you help us find individuals who are ready to start and have the qualifications to do so? And we view this lab almost as a feeder program into different programs at the different studios.
Can I ask, where do you source the participants, the actors, the actresses, the people from behind the scenes that come to the lab? Where do you source the people to join that summer lab? Where do they come from?
So we've worked with a lot of different partners. Gina Davis Institute, which focuses on gender inclusion, they helped advertise to get women with disabilities. GLAD, which focuses on folks who are LGBTQ, they helped advertise for us, so folks who are LGBTQ with disabilities. Muslim Public Affairs Council, they helped advertise, so for folks who Muslim Public Affairs Council, they advertise for them, for folks with disabilities. We also worked with Gail Williamson, who represents more than 400 actors and actresses with disabilities. Some of them also work behind the camera, and so she is the only talent agent at this time that only represents talent with disabilities. And so she is a partner of ours for this. And then we also had worked with, or working for next year with Inclusion Films, which is Joey Travolta. And we had a conversation just last month, and he specifically trains people with developmental disabilities. And that Marissa, who I was talking about, she was trained by Joey Travolta's Inclusion Films, where he is working with us to get some of his graduates to then participate in our lab.
One more rapid-fire question, or
final? I could ask one if there's time. If I
10-second question and a 10-second answer.
May not be a 10-second question.
We're burning into it, so it's
You referred
9
to
seconds.
the window is closing in
Yes.
the next few years. Why is that, given that content creation is booming?
Well, I think content creation will continue to boom, but what's happening right now is we have all these new streaming services that are coming out with Disney Plus, Apple Plus, everything. But at some point, all these new things come out, but then will they all continue to succeed, or will some succeed and then will others be bought by others? And then will there suddenly not be a million options out there? And so I don't know if there will continue to be a lot of different content options, 10 years from now. Maybe there will be, maybe there won't be. But I see an opportunity that exists right now that might not exist in the near future.
Lauren, any final thoughts for the audience and judges?
Sure. So 25 participants this year could lead to 100 in a very short period of time. Soon, they will be in a position to hire others, amplifying our effect even more. Everyone in this room wins when we support those who can assure authentic storytelling on screen. Thank you very much for your time.
Fantastic. Big round. Thank you, Lauren. As an investor entrepreneur myself, I love the fact that you're getting money from another party. So that's great. And please leave the clicker. So if you're, all right, if we learn that. So we're gonna bring it home, number 7. I'd like to introduce Dr. Oliver Wendt. Oliver is the Assistant Professor of Speech Language Pathology at the University of Central Florida, serves as the Director of Augmentative and Alternative Communications and Autism Research Lab. His team develops research-based interventions and mobile technologies to make an impact for minimally verbal learners with severe autism or developmental disabilities. Oliver would be presenting the evidence-based mobile technologies for optimized speech and language training. And joining Oliver for the Q&A is Philip Hayes, project consultant, team member, and father of 13-year-old son with autism. Please welcome the team.
Good afternoon. My name is Oliver Wendt. For the last 25 years, my life's work has focused on helping those that don't have any voice to communicate. My team and I developed Speak All and Speak More, groundbreaking tools that are based on solid research, that provide novel ways of learning, and that make an impact for those with the most severe forms of autism and developmental disability. As we all know, autism numbers are currently exploding. Up to 66% of these children are minimally verbal and do not have sufficient speech and language to meet their daily communication needs. Without proper speech and language, these students face tremendous difficulty for participation in education and society, which is just devastating to quality of life. Our solution is a research-based suite of tablet applications, Speak All and Speak More, that go beyond nowadays standard of teaching just symbolic communication, where all the kids do is just pushing buttons on their speech devices. Our products actively facilitate natural speech, engage students in early language, and actively teach social interaction. Here's an example. You will see Mallory and David. They are nonverbal and show the typical autism symptoms before introduction of our product suite.
You're fine.
Now Mallory learns to request with Speak All.
Sensory toy.
Sensory toy. David makes his first words.
Can you say it, David? I want toothpaste.
Excellent. This student learns to combine nouns and verbs with Speak
What is
More.
Sarah doing? Joe. Go. Good job. What is Sarah doing? Bob. Good job.
And finally, Mallory participates in more and more daily.
What do you want? I'll have cakes.
I want Minute Maze.
I want minute maze. I want purple sensory toy. I want purple sensory toy.
Good asking. Can I have the orange one?
No!
After this intervention, for the very first time in her life, Mallory was actually able to attend an inclusive education elementary classroom. We are accomplishing this effect through an autism-specific design. Our interface is very simple and intuitive. Kids with autism are primarily visual learners. You can see how they like to drag and drop graphic symbols onto the sentence strip that speaks it out for them, providing an easy verbal model that they can imitate. There are over 200 communication apps. Our product suite is the only one that is autism-specific, that grows with the learner, that is funded by the National Institutes of Health, and that specifically targets language learning and generalization, a major difficulty in autism. The targeted market is about 4.25 million in the United States and 85.5 million internationally. We want to actively reach out to autism and speech and language clinics as well as K-12 classrooms. We've already accomplished some major milestones. Over 40,000 kids and their families are currently using previous software versions. 30 partner clinics around the world are early adopters, and 3 patents have been filed on this technology. The proposed project will take the technology to the next level by adding essential components that allow caretakers to share content across devices and track learner progress to maximize intervention effectiveness. We then want to take these newly developed versions and deploy them with 30 to 40 learners right here in the region served by the Northeastern Arc. This will allow us to raise product awareness, build a sound business model around it, and move towards commercial release. The feedback we have from parents shows us that we are on the right track.
How we get real communication, and that's a big jump. That's a big jump. And it happened very quickly, and it was wonderful that the interface could provide that sort of structure.
SpeakAll is much simpler and easier for her to negotiate, to manage. Her other therapists who perhaps see her once a week, they have said consistently every week, I can't believe how much she's progressed from last week.
Just a very, I say, basic amount of training. People can learn how to help their children communicate their needs.
Because that's my prayer every day is please let my son be able to communicate with me and the world.
Not only do parents say good things about us, so do clinicians and teachers. With your help, judges, with your support from the audience, we can continue to make an important impact and transform lives through innovative technologies that are based in solid research, that truly provide novel learning, and that make a huge impact for those that need it most, namely those with severe developmental disorders and autism. Thank you very much.
All right, judges, you know what to do.
So can you talk a little bit about this, the enhancements and the updates to the app that, which is, I think, the largest amount of money is going to be focused around that, and a little bit about what you're hoping to do with and accomplish?
Yes. So we see this as an outstanding opportunity to explore and extend the value proposition of this envisioned product. When we've shipped out the evaluation versions, our customers have surprised us by creating activities and content that went beyond what we had initially thought and developed. For example, here is a family that has created a gingerbread house holiday activity. Here's another family that has created a scavenger hunt type of activity. Bouncy Ball is an experiment that teachers have created so students who are nonverbal can participate in little science projects with their non-disabled peers. By adding a cloud-based data management and crowdsourcing ability, we want to allow these families and teachers and clinicians to share that content among each other. That provides more value, and that provides also, from a business standpoint, further transactions. And by deploying it here in the rich Boston community, we can study how should we deliver this, what would be the best pricing point, in what formats would parents, teachers, clinicians want to have this contact. In addition, we will do a better learner tracking system by including Google Analytics that will use the tablet as a sensor to track how many sentences, how many words are being built by a learner. We can have different learner profiles, track progress over time.
And how long would kids use your program or your app? Is it a few months, a year, or years?
4 years. Our initial business explorations show that learners typically would stick with our product suite for about 4 years. What we hope to find out is, what is the best business model over those 4 years? Is it a subscription model? Is it a one-time paid fee? That's again what we hope to be getting out of the business part with working with the Northeastern Arc.
So you are, I don't want to say essentially, you're developing a commercial product.
Yes, yes. We want to go towards commercial release. Right now it's only available as a beta version. We have a lot of beta early adopters that have successfully used this within their facilities, but we think there is more potential to complete the product suite, increase value proposition, and roll it out to even more users.
And do you have a plan on how to do that? How to roll it out?
Here in Boston, Phil, raise your hand. He is in the back. There he is. He is located here in Boston and will be helping with contacting the constituents of the Northeastern Arc. I'm frequently in Boston because I have a research grant with Northeastern University, so I can also chip in and do trainings and consultations with institutions. And then for the broader area, once we go full commercial, we would have to put together an inside sales force initially, led by a software sales marketing director. At the university, we can decrease the cost by using students that are being trained to be salespeople. Major universities like UCF down in Florida have a sales training program. They work for $10.50 an hour, and they get the training to be a good sales consultant. We have to push social media. We have to push other marketing efforts, create brochures, attend major conferences, professional organizations. So there will be a multi-channel marketing strategy because there are different market segments, so to say.
The indirect costs seem a little high to me. It seems like a third of the budget. Why is that?
Here's a letter that I wrote to the department head and to the foundation asking for a reduction of the indirect cost rate. And the department head approved it at 10%, but at the higher levels of the university, when the grant proposal is put in, they charge the full rate of 49% of indirect cost because in the current grant guidelines of the foundation, there's no fine print, no regulations that says indirect cost is going to be cut at a certain amount of percent. So I've talked with the Northeast Arc leadership and have recommended that they have this fine print, these regulations in the future regulations. My direct cost for the research lab is much less. If you can come in at the full cost, we will exceed the project goals and we will throw in, here's the big deal, we will throw in also an iPhone version that the students have developed in the research lab. They are very proud of this. With the iPhone version, families impacted by autism, developmental disability can communicate right away. They don't even have to have an iPad. We'll throw this in at no cost to the project.
Did you want
one more question?
One very quick, just because we're in the lab. Yeah.
So I see kids on the spectrum communicating with their iPads, but you said that there's over 200 communication software apps, but none for kids, especially for kids on the autism spectrum. Can you explain that a little bit?
That's essentially correct.
So,
the industry is very much focused on hardware devices because hardware can be insurance reimbursed, and then they offer versions that are basically mimicking the hardware interface on a tablet. Right. This has too many bells and whistles. It's too distracting. It does not take into account the specific learning characteristics. Too distracting. The kids don't know what to make out of the colors. The colors are used to code word classes. For the kids, it's incredibly difficult to understand. They first have to push food and eating, then they have to push a breakfast before they go to orange juice. Our interface avoids all of these types of challenges and has a few more subtle features to make it truly fit for those with autism and developmental
and you've
delay.
done this because you have so many families, and it's through your research that you've been able to hone what works with kids on the spectrum.
We have taken what is called a participatory design approach, where the research lab and the engineering people work very closely with the actual stakeholders, families, clinicians, caretakers, to get direct input, what works and what doesn't, and what is the best design for such an interface.
Would you like to share final thoughts with the audience to bring us home?
Well, this is severe autism is a very under-researched and underserved population. A lot of solutions are out there that do not have any scientific support and have the potential to do more harm than any good. Here we have something that is based on solid research and that hopefully we can make affordable to families and increase its impact. I really appreciate the support. It's been great to be here. Thanks again for having me. It's been a great time.
Thank you for bringing us home. So I'm going to lead the judges into a session in the back room to figure out which of the 7 we will be designating the winners. And while I do that, I'll just leave you with an ask. We've heard some fantastic presentations here from some phenomenal people. And so if any of these ideas resonate with you, like please jump in, whether it's donating some of your time, some of your passion, some of your knowledge and expertise or connections that you have maybe in the space that can help them out. And if, I guess finally, if you have a little bit of a wallet that you would like to share with the founders, I'm sure they would appreciate that as well. So.
Quick question, the judges are all in. What's with the orange hats?
Yeah, someone tell us, orange hats.
Okay, and just quickly, as the judges go, I found the clicker if anybody needs it. Ironically, I don't need it, and I have it. Okay, so you all have a job to do as well. Behind your name tag, you found a ticket, I'm sure. It's for fan favorite. There's going to be about a 20-minute break now where you can go over here, and there's a reception, and you can talk to anybody who you need to talk to. But before you do, please see the fish bowls on the table here. Take your ticket and drop it into the fish bowl that you think should get fan favorite, and that fan favorite gets a special, unique prize at the end as well. So enjoy.
Thank you.
I think I'm gonna, yeah. Wrap this up before there's a picture taken of it.
All right, everyone, are we all settled back in? Oh, that means you're settled back in and ready to clap. I like it. All right. To the applicants, once again, thank you all very much. Really impressive applications and impressive back and forth with the judges. We do appreciate it. First, I just want to read the fan favorite, because you all went over there to the fish bowls and dropped your tickets in. And the fan favorite this year is LA Lab. Need an announcement? Oh, you've got the... All right, and the judges have given 4 of the applicants money, and there is a breakdown. So I'm going to read it for you right now. 40, is it 40? 45 or 43? Is it a 5 or a 3? All right, $45,000 the judges awarded to Autism Works. Just keep going. Okay, I'll bring everybody up. $50,000 goes to Beat Rockers. $75,000 goes to creating opportunities for entrepreneurs. And the final $80,000 of all of tonight's money goes to the 4A Club. While we take a few last pictures, I want to thank you all for coming to the 3rd annual ArcTank. Hope you enjoyed and were inspired as much as I am every year. I mean, it's hard not to be inspired when you walk into this room. Okay. Make sure you follow Northeast Arc on Facebook, on Twitter. Exciting announcements coming this spring, seeking more big and bold thinkers for the next ArcTank. We appreciate you all being here, and have a great afternoon.